I really like things that are on the boundary between economic questions and econometric questions. So I think a lot of econometrics currently is kind of focused on high theory, which is very useful, but it's just not what I do. So I kind of like problems that have very much direct empirical relevance, that are sort of on the boundary between economics and econometrics. And unfortunately, fewer people are doing that. So it used to be that econometricians were all very much applied economists. Now that econometrics has gotten so mathematical, many econometricians are basically just mathematicians. And I think you lose a lot by not having that strong economic focus as well. I think some of the identification, so I've worked a lot in identification, and some of it doesn't seem to have had much application. And I guess it's not clear yet whether it was just because I chose poorly and these were things that nobody cared about, or maybe someday in the future they will. So, but definitely the kinds of stuff that where it's obvious how to use it, things that are relatively simple for people to do, those become more popular, and I think more people are interested in. So I think right now there's kind of this split between people who are doing experimental-based, reduced form, randomization, very simple, econometrically simple things involving experiments. And then at the other extreme, you have these very complicated econometric methods and analyses. And I think that there's going to be a lot of interesting work done in bridging the gap between these. So bringing in both kind of structural modeling with the randomization-based experimental data. Right now these gone in two very different directions. People say, well, I either do fancy structural models or I do randomization, experiment-based difference and difference type things. I think there's an enormous middle ground between those where the econometrics can deal with the problems that are involved in like data collection, data attrition, data measurement. So there's a host of issues that arise when you try and do randomization with real data. And at the other extreme, there's many things that we want to estimate that we can't directly observe, can't directly measure, right? We care about welfare and utility and risk preferences and all these other things that we don't directly observe. And I think you need structural modeling to bridge the gap between the things we can see and the things we as economists are actually interested in. So I see a very fertile middle ground combining structural and reduced form methods. Well, you know, juggling is really a hobby, so it's really not tied to my research in any way. But I think this notion of play is very important. A lot of the econometric work I've done has been trying to find things that are fun rather than necessarily useful, and I've always enjoyed things that were peculiar. More than useful necessarily, and hopefully if they're interesting and fun enough, then people will find them useful later.